What's up guys, welcome to this new video where I talk about 5 reasons your Google Ads are failing. And I want to be very clear here up front. Of course, failing is relative and depends on your case. To some people it means that, they cannot even get a single sale to their online store. To other people it means that they're unprofitable, and to other people then again it means that they cannot scale past $10,000, $20,000 a month. All the reasons I name here in this video though are important, and you should keep watching if you aren't like 100% satisfied with your Google Ads results, because maybe there is one reason that's really the key why you cannot get ahead as well. And the first reason that I present here is very common on this channel, so don't worry, but it's super important. The other ones will be, a little more special, but it's ads first and store later. I talk about that so often that if you want me to look at your store, please put it in the comments and I will do a little video series where I look at your stores on YouTube and review them and tell you about what you could do better basically. So put them in the comments and I will take a look. Ads first, store later. A lot of normal dropshipping or small e-commerce stores look like this, right? Especially if you use Shopify. It's very common to have this very full white space layout, very boring, a lot of white space. You use a lot of images. The text is usually very long. You can scroll down and down and down. There is too much text. It all doesn't really make sense. It doesn't look that good. Here in this example, by the way, I removed the navigation. The navigation on both of these looked really bad as well, but I removed it with the logo and everything. It's all flashy, it's all kind of weird, and if you come to me and you tell me, hey, my ads aren't working, and then you show me a store like that, honestly, I don't have to look any further, because in 95% of the cases with a store like that, that's the reason, right? That's the reason why it's not working. Sure, some of these stores may actually perform very well, but you are definitely better off with a store that simply looks better. So I don't want to talk about those few cases where stores like these actually make 6 figures a month, right? That should be very clear here. So ads first, site later, or store later. Basically, those type of sites have endless walls of text with little to no value. You're just talking and talking and talking, and even if it's a $10 product that's super, boring basically, people tend to make so many paragraphs of text and just keep writing just because they somehow think that more copy means better copy, but it couldn't be further from the truth. If you look at many big retail stores online, they have, short paragraph of text, especially if the product is simple. If it's a high-tech product that needs a lot of explanation, of course you need more text, more images, but if it's a simple everyday product like an accessory item, furniture, fashion, or something like that, then you don't need that stuff. You just talk about the product, very simple, you talk about the specifications, materials, whatever, and that's it, right? Also, they have terrible formatting. They are very hard to read. They don't use any, bold text. They have it all in the same format. They have very little sort of line space, and it makes it just extremely hard to read them properly. Often, these websites are also slow. So look at page speed insights. Check your Google Analytics if your site is slow, and if it's like slower than 4 seconds, then you have to do something. Remove apps, remove things you don't need, decrease the size of all your images, or get someone on Fiverr who can help you with that. Oftentimes also people use super unoriginal products, and that's something I talk a little bit more in later in this video, but just keep that in mind. Don't try to sell the 1000th neck massager or anti-theft backpack or yoga mat or something like that, right? And flashy pop-ups, icons, countdowns, all those things that are meant to increase sales, but in reality just scare away the customer, shouldn't be used as well. Very bad use of colors is very common, so that it looks cheap, that it looks like it was made in an afternoon, that it doesn't look professional, and it doesn't create trust. Last but not least, if you use names like, the hottestdeals.com with 3 Z or names like that, it just sounds generic, it sounds weird, it sounds kind of low professional, and you should avoid that like the plague. So that's the first point. I know I talk about that a lot, so I hope you're still with me, but this, I just wanted to bring that home because it's so important, and oftentimes it's not the ads, but it's that stuff. Now, with this being said, let's talk about ignoring competition on the ad side, right? So if you do a Google shopping search and these are the results, you have a portable projector. That's what I was looking here for, right? You see all those results coming up, and many of them look exactly the same. Many of them are super cheap already. Then you have some high-tech versions, but literally anything is there. And there are a lot of products, a lot of product types where it looks exactly like this. Now, don't get me wrong, any product out there is competitive almost, right? You cannot really avoid competition, but you can avoid having maximum competition. And that's what many people just don't care about. They go with crazily competitive products that are sold by thousands of people on Google Shopping and search, and then they wonder why people don't choose them, right? So ignoring competition is really important, or not to know, not to ignore competition, right? Everything is competitive, but don't force it. Don't go with the most competitive items that everyone in the dropshipping or e-commerce space is selling. Competition plus bad store design plus mediocre advertising equals disaster. So if you do it like this, then prepare to be very special with your store, be very original, so that you kind of stay in customers' minds, have excellent store design, store layout, usability, and all those things. Plus, of course, great advertising. Then it can work, but you make it harder for yourself than you have to. So just choose a niche that isn't super brutally competitive or a product in the first place. Check what your immediate competitors' stores look like. If they all look terrible, if they're all beginner dropshippers, if they all try to make a quick buck, yes, maybe lots of competition isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if all those competitors have super dedicated niche stores, they have super well-designed stores, good pricing, chat where you can immediately reach people and great selection, then don't bother going into these super competitive niches. Get inspiration from their shopping and search ad listings. That's also important. Lots of people think they run ads in a vacuum. That's not true, of course. You're running ads along dozens, hundreds, or thousands of competitors, and you should every now and then take a look at their ads, look at what they're doing, how are they positioning themselves, what are they writing in their ads, what's their copy like. That's really important, just as bestsellers don't mean more sales. When I ask people, how do you find your products, right? They are like, I go to AliExpress, I go to whatever, and I pick the bestseller, I pick the ones that are hot and new and that gets sold 10,000 times a day. In my opinion, that's the exact wrong way to do it, because you're entering the markets where everyone is jumping in right now, where there is lots of competition, and the only thing you prove is that some people are selling it right now. It doesn't mean that you will be able to sell it right now easily, it just means there is lots of competition and that someone is selling it. I always recommend going into picking a niche store and then selling anything in regards to that specific niche. That's usually a lot more effective than hand-picking individual products and testing them in a general store and trying to sell those bestsellers already. That's a lot more difficult. So let's look at number 3, and this is tiny budgets but high CPCs. If you have a $10 per day budget only because you're running a shoestring budget, right? But you have a $1 average CPC and it's very hard to get below that, it doesn't work. Like, don't even bother, because you need 100 days just to get 10 days to get 100 clicks, and 100 clicks is a very small amount. So don't bother with that if you really are in a landscape like this with that high of a CPC and a small budget. Because instead, if you have a low budget, you should go into a low competition niche. So use the keyword planner and check where the overall CPC rate is like 20 cents, 30 cents, 40 cents, maybe 50, but that should already be the upper range if you have a tiny budget. Or even better, prepare and really stockpile some more cash and then try going into e-commerce. If you're an absolute beginner and for some reason you want to start with like $10 a day and you only have a couple $100, wait. Do it later. Definitely better than, spending your few dollars on ads that will not work in the end. Also, focus on the absolute low-hanging fruits when it comes to the bidding. Meaning, bid extremely low. Try to get the cheapest clicks possible for your campaigns. Also, run only the most relevant keywords. In case of shopping, use lots and lots of negatives so that you make sure you exclude anything that isn't relevant, exclude other brands, exclude things like Amazon that are not necessarily super bad, but if you have a tiny budget and you only get a handful of clicks per day, those few clicks need to be absolute 100% relevant, and of course spend more time on your page and everything, because if you cannot afford it, if you cannot spend the money, you have to spend the time. That's really important. Also, use Bing along with Google. I want to do a little more content on Bing in the next weeks and months every now and then, because so many people aren't even aware of the fact that Bing really exists, right? They are just like, hey, it's Google, it's all about Google. Bing is of course a lot smaller, but it shouldn't be neglected. Keep that in mind, give Bing a try, or simply subscribe to this channel so that you get notified when some Bing content is coming up, because that's really, really underutilized. Number 4, products with little demand. This should be self-explanatory, but let me talk about that because a lot of people don't really understand that. If you are running ads on Google to an e-commerce store, dropshipping, whatever, almost anything can make 10 to 20,000 a month on Google in sales, right? Then we have like 10 to 30% margin, depending on the case. So you can get a decent business going with almost any product, any niche, simply because if you target a country like the US, there are a lot of people and enough people to sustain that. But beyond that point, it highly depends. There are so many people that try to fit a circle into a square. Like, I get that probably 2 or 3 times a week I get a message like, hey, I'm making $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month with this and that product, but I seem to be capped. What can I do? Very often, in fact, it can be scaled further. We had those cases, right? We were going from 10 to 100K plus. We were going from 50K to over $500,000 as well. Those things happen, and they happen regularly, but it's not that any niche can be scaled to the moon and every product can be scaled to the moon, at least not using purely Google Ads. So don't try to create demand out of nowhere, because that doesn't work at all. If there are only that many search queries that are even remotely relevant to what you sell, don't try to further scale your campaigns with higher CPCs and higher bids and budgets and everything when you already have max, when your search impression share tells you have over 90% on everything. You won't get more. It's not because just because you add some more ads and more keywords and more stuff doesn't mean you automatically get more scale if those new things aren't somewhat related to what you sell. So expand your offering or add more traffic sources. You could add more products, you could add more categories, you could add some upsells and other things, or you could simply, of course, it's easier said than done, but you could jump into Bing, you could jump into Facebook, into influencers, into other things, or you simply say, okay, you know what, that's 20K, 30K here, like there. Now I want to jump into another niche, into another business, into another sort of site store, and you could do different things there, right? Not every niche, not every store can hit 100K or 500K, let alone $1 million or something like that a month. It just doesn't work and it just doesn't happen. So keep that in mind. And if you're really at a ceiling, double check whether you're really doing everything you can. Drop me a message, look on YouTube, whatever. But if ultimately it just doesn't work, then you need to be aware of that and you have to be honest to yourself at this point. You can, of course, use audience-based campaign types, and this is discovery, display, YouTube. They work best if you have lots of conversions. Oftentimes, it is possible to get more sales. It doesn't mean that you necessarily get more from search and shopping, but if you know how to use these campaign types, discovery, display, YouTube, simplified, I call them just the display network or audience-based campaign types, right? Even though these are technically 3 different things. If you have lots of conversions in your account, meaning 20, 30K per month from search shopping, lots of conversions, at least like 50 to 100 a month plus, then those can work very well too, but prepare to do several ads here, lots of research, lots of testing, have a decent budget to spend on that, like easily hundreds of dollars. You have to be ready to really spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars before seeing any potential return on those. That's pretty usual. So they should come less after you have thought about all the other things, but they might be an option as well. We had cases where discovery campaigns are running on $2,000 per day in ad spend profitably, but we have cases where they don't work at all. So keep that in mind. And now we come to the last point, and this is simply bad ads or bad advertising. So that's the first point that really focuses completely on the ad side and with the ads themselves. One typical issue is testing shopping only. So here we are more on the scaling side, right? If you cannot scale your shopping ads further, maybe it's because you're only testing shopping and you could scale your ads with search, for example. So to test search, if you have a product that's selling, if you have a niche that's working, if you have a category that's working, that might actually do very well for you. Or if you only test standard shopping, give smart shopping a try and vice versa, because they work entirely different. Like Google has different departments for those, right? So the standard shopping department and the smart shopping department are 2 separate entities. So there you already see how different they really are. So give both a try. Use negative keywords. I always have to think because I put them here backwards, right? It's a problem to not use negative keywords. So use negative keywords. That's also very key because you are else leaving money on the table like every single day. Use the right bidding strategies and bids. If you're not using the right bidding strategies and bids, it's not super important from day one, really, right? Whether you use maximize clicks or manual CPC when you spend 20 bucks a day, doesn't really matter. But when you spend 100 bucks a day, 200, 400, and you don't know how to properly use bidding strategies and when to use automated bidding and when to use manual bidding and when to change your bids, then you will definitely lose a lot of sales and or a lot of profitability. Not optimizing your campaigns properly, of course, is an issue as well. Like all the points that I put here on number 5, bad ads, are pretty complex by themselves. And like, sure, not optimizing campaigns properly is an issue, but how to do that is now the question. Well, there's a lot of content on this channel that talks about ad optimization and improving campaigns and what to do, but I just want to list them here so that you know if things aren't working, redo entire campaigns, change entire bidding strategies, change the products that you advertise, change as much as possible really, instead of making those very small adjustments. And this also includes wrong testing. If people sometimes test very little things, they just tweak around some numbers, some text, or they test products that are very similar. Instead, test products that are very different, as long as they're still in your niche. As long as you have a niche store, if you have a general store, you can do all kinds of crazy things, of course. Wrong scaling, see that all the time. People scale too aggressively or they scale too slowly, which then of course just costs them time basically. And there is so much more. Like this 5th part, of course, is very complex because it's the entire Google Ads system that's behind that. And there are so many points, but probably these are the most important ones that people don't really get right. And of course, the bigger your store gets, the more you spend, the more important this slide here really becomes. So yeah, as I said, if you like, then drop a link below so that I can look at your store here in one of the next videos. Don't worry if it's like terrible or if it's like great, I won't call you out for sure. I will just give you my subjective but also battle tested feedback based on what I've seen over the years, spending millions of dollars on Google Ads, making over $20 million in combined e-commerce sales. So I will look at them and I will say like, okay, what's the best way to improve them and what would I do better here? So just post them here. I will look at them and I will pick a few stores depending on how much time I have to review in one of the upcoming videos. So with this being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. I hope you learned something here. If so, please drop a like, subscribe to this channel for the Bing content as well as for those store reviews here if you think there would be value in that. I'm pretty sure there will. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching. I look forward to see you in the next video again. And I wish you all the best. Take care and bye-bye.